Let me tell you something that will make you want to close this video, and that is exactly why you need to hear it. In late 2024, a private dinner was held in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. In that room sat 3 billionaires, 2 former Treasury secretaries, and the chief economist of the largest hedge fund on Earth. The topic was not climate change, not artificial intelligence, not the election. The topic was the $2 trillion lie. That lie is the official story you have been told, that the 2025 tariffs were about trade imbalances, about bringing jobs back to America, about making China pay. None of that is true. The truth is that the wealthiest people in America were warned 12 months in advance that the 2025 tariffs would trigger an economic collapse, and they did not fight it. They did not warn you. They positioned for it. They sold their consumer goods stocks, shorted the retail sector, and bought hard assets, real estate, gold, farmland, and infrastructure debt. While you were cheering or jeering the headlines, they were quietly moving billions of dollars out of the path of destruction and into the shelter of tangible wealth. The $2 trillion lie refers to the estimated amount of middle-class purchasing power that will be silently transferred from your pocket to the balance sheets of the asset-owning class between 2025 and 2027. And the most painful part is not the transfer itself. The most painful part is that you were told it was coming. You just did not know how to read the warning signs. Let me give you a real example of someone who saw the collapse coming and someone who did not. The person who saw it coming is a client I will call Robert. Robert is not a billionaire. He is a retired high school principal in Ohio with a net worth of $1.2 million. In October 2024, Robert came to me with a newspaper clipping about the proposed tariffs. He said, "I do not understand trade policy, but I remember the last time we did this, in 2018. My groceries went up, my car repairs went up, my grandson's sneakers went up, and none of it ever came back down. If they do this again, but bigger, what happens to my savings?" I showed Robert the historical data. After the 2018 tariffs, the middle class lost approximately $1,400 per household per year in purchasing power. The top 1% increased their net worth by an average of $78,000 per household during the same period because they owned the assets that inflated. So, Robert made a decision. He liquidated 40% of his bond portfolio, which was yielding 4%, and moved into a combination of a small industrial warehouse in a nearby town and physical gold. The warehouse cost him $340,000 and was already rented to a plumbing supply company. The gold cost him $80,000. The person who did not see the collapse coming was his neighbor, Diane. Diane had $600,000 in a target date retirement fund, heavily weighted toward large-cap American stocks and corporate bonds. She watched the news, trusted that the market always recovers, and did nothing. By March 2026, after the tariffs had fully taken effect and the retail sector had been decimated by falling consumer confidence and rising input costs, Robert's warehouse had appreciated to $410,000. His gold was up 22%. Diane's target date fund was down 16%. Robert did not outsmart Diane. Robert simply understood that trade policy is not trade. It is about the redistribution of wealth from consumers, which are mostly the middle class, to owners, who are mostly the already wealthy. The tariffs of 2025 were not a mistake. They were a mechanism, and mechanisms have predictable outcomes. Let me explain the $2 trillion lie in psychological terms that will change how you watch every political speech for the rest of your life. When a politician says tariffs will protect American workers, your brain hears safety. That is not an accident. The word protect is a fear-reducing signal. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system, lowers your cortisol, and makes you feel that someone in power is looking out for you.
Meanwhile, the same politicians' largest donors, who own factories, warehouses, and commodities, are calculating exactly how much their assets will appreciate when the cost of imported goods rises by 25 to 60%. This is called policy arbitrage. The wealthy do not just react to policy, they anticipate it, they lobby for it, they fund the campaigns of people who will enact it, and then they position their portfolios 6 to 18 months in advance. By the time you hear the announcement on the news, they have already bought what you will need to survive the consequences. In 2025, the specific mechanism was this. The tariffs raised the cost of manufactured goods, which raised the cost of building and maintaining real estate, which raised rents. They raised the cost of imported food, which raised the price of domestic farmland and agricultural commodities. They raised the cost of imported electronics, which raised the demand for domestic semiconductor manufacturing facilities, which are owned by institutional investors, not by you. Every single price increase that hurt you created a corresponding asset appreciation for someone who owned the thing that was now more valuable. That is not a conspiracy. That is basic supply and demand. The lie is not that tariffs exist. The lie is that they help people like you. They do not. They have never. They will never. And the wealthy were warned because they are the ones writing the warning memos. The $2 trillion is the estimated total of middle-class purchasing power that will evaporate between 2025 and 2027. Some of it will disappear into higher prices. Some of it will disappear into lost wages at companies that cannot afford the new supply chain costs. And the rest will disappear into the quiet, legal, and perfectly invisible transfer of wealth from your checking account to the asset portfolios of people who knew exactly what was coming because they helped design it.
Stop and let the weight of this land on you. You are not paranoid. You are not watching too much internet content. You are finally seeing the machine for what it is. And seeing it is the first step to beating it. The single most important psychological shift you can make today is to stop waiting for an apology or a reversal. The tariffs of 2025 will not be reversed in any meaningful way because the people who benefit from them control the levers of reversal. Even if a future administration lowers some duties, the underlying price increases will remain. Prices are sticky. They go up like a rocket and come down like a feather. Your job is not to change trade policy. Your job is to change your position in the trade policy ecosystem. Your motivational anchor for today is this phrase: I cannot stop the transfer, but I can get on the receiving end of it. The wealthy did not get warned because they are smarter than you. They got warned because they are connected to the people. You need understanding. Understanding is free. Understanding tells you that when tariffs raise the cost of imported steel, the price of existing American steel mills goes up. You can buy shares of steel mills. When tariffs raise the cost of imported furniture, the value of American timberland goes up. You can buy a timber mill. When tariffs raise the cost of imported electronics, the value of American semiconductor goes up. You can buy a semiconductor index fund. You do not need to be a billionaire to own these things. You need a brokerage account and the willingness to act on information that most people will ignore because it feels uncomfortable. Your discomfort is their edge. The moment you stop running from discomfort and start running toward the information that causes it, you have just closed the gap between you and the people who were warned.
Here is your expert solution, and I need you to treat this as an emergency because the remaining window to position for the second wave of tariff-related asset appreciation is closing. Step 1. Identify the 5 categories where tariffs have raised costs the most in your life. For most Americans in 2026, that is housing materials, vehicles, electronics, packaged food, and clothing. Now flip each category from a cost to an asset. For housing materials, buy shares of a home building ETF or a lumber futures contract. For vehicles, buy shares of American auto parts manufacturers who now have pricing power over imported parts. For electronics, buy a semiconductor ETF. For packaged food, buy an agricultural commodities fund. For clothing, buy shares of American textile manufacturers. You are not diversifying, you are hedging. Every time you pay more for something, you want to own a piece of the company that makes you pay more. Step 2. Liquidate any cash or bond holdings that are not in an emergency fund of 6 months or less. In a tariff-driven inflationary environment, cash and bonds are the two worst performing assets. Move that money into a self-directed IRA or a taxable brokerage account and deploy it into the categories from Step 1. You do not need to time the bottom. You need to be in the game before the second wave of institutional buying pushes prices up another 20%. Step 3, and this is the master key that turns the $2 trillion lie into your personal wealth creation event. You must stop consuming financial news and start consuming trade data. The United States International Trade Commission publishes monthly data on tariff collections, import volumes, and supply chain shifts. That data tells you 6 months before the news media figures it out which industries are about to get more expensive and which assets are about to appreciate. Spend 2 hours this weekend learning how to read the tariff schedule. It is not complicated. It is a spreadsheet. The wealthy have teams of analysts reading it. You have yourself. That is enough if you are willing to be disciplined. The $2 trillion lie is not that the wealthy were warned. They were. The lie is that you could not have been warned too. You were warned. Right now, in this video. The question is not whether you heard the warning. The question is what you do with it before the next dinner in Jackson Hole, before the next policy announcement, before the next transfer of your purchasing power to someone else's asset portfolio. You have time. You do not have forever. Move.